Welcome back to Test, Learn, Grow. How are things in your world today, Miles?
Things are fantastic. Hopefully you don't hear the toddler stomping upstairs that I'm hearing right now. So we'll have to edit that out throughout this podcast, everyone. But other than that, it's a beautiful Monday here in Pittsburgh. I'm excited for our conversation today.
And with that, let's dive into it. Today on the podcast, we have the incomparable Laura Grenewald, team lead of B2B One here at Level. And we have her sidekick, Dylan Narduli, media manager on B2B One and overall media rock star. Great to have you both on the podcast today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right, let's dig in, Laura.
Sure.
Google Tag Manager, right? Pretty beefy, pretty weighty. Can you give us a quick dive in, a high-level overview of how GTM works and what we mean when we say things like events firing?
Well, I am probably the wrong person to ask what GTM is and what we mean by events firing, but thank goodness Dylan is here on my team. I have a high-level understanding of it. For my purposes and the way I talk about it with my clients, Google Tag Manager is kind of like a little organizing book that's on their website, right? And we go in and we write all the notes that we need in that book. And there are other, they might have other partners that work with them and they write all their notes in that book too. And it's kind of where all of that data lives about how Facebook is using their data, how LinkedIn is using their data, how Google is using their data, and other tools as well. So I don't directly manage Google Tag Manager, but I know that it's really important so that we can tell a clear story of what's happening when we send traffic to our partners' websites. So Dylan can talk to you a little bit more about the technical work that we did together, but I can kind of set up the story. So on our team, we have a client that's been part of the Level story for a long time now, a partnership of more than 6 years, actually. And over that time, this client who works in a very highly technical space and services a lot of different business units, they've expanded so much with so many different types of partners that their Google Tag Manager had become a little bit unruly. So instead of one book, they had kind of a little library. I think we had 3 or 4 different Google Tag Manager instances on the site. Reporting was coming out of one for certain channels and others for other channels. And that segmentation was making reporting on our end really challenging. And then furthermore, for their IT team, it was just getting harder and harder to manage access. So who could see what through what tag source. So they came to us with this problem kind of at the forefront of, hey, we've got a dozen different consultants and agencies that we work with. We've got this handful of Google Tag Manager accounts, and we need to consolidate everything into one place. Level, can you help? So Dylan sort of led the charge here, working with their IT team and put together a thoughtful plan that let us consolidate everything into one bucket. And now we're starting into the next phases of this consolidation and tracking management project with them.
Awesome. Yeah, I can give a little clarification here too. Great summary, Laura. Thank you for that. And just to kind of define Google Tag Manager, what it is a tag management system, right? It's a tool that lets you configure and instantly deploy tracking tags or pixels onto websites or properties or apps, so that you can collect user data and track behavior and certain things like that on apps or properties. It is one of the main tools, tag management tools in the industry, and easily the most widely used, claiming over 90% of market share. So it is very widely adopted, and one of our main tools in our toolkits.
Yeah, and Dylan, just to gut check my own knowledge here, the way I understand Tag Manager, to Laura's point about it's a book, it's kind of like the almost like the table of contents of a book, right? And so if you didn't use Google Tag Manager, The flip side would be every pixel that you had, your Facebook pixel, one for LinkedIn, anything, right? They would all individually have to be loaded up directly into the website. Meaning, if I'm a business, I have to grant access to my website to all of my partners, which hopefully that sounds scary, because it is kind of scary to think about, right? Think about how important the website is, all these people in it, chances for stuff to go wrong. Instead, the business could install Google Tag Manager, or say one partner like Level, if we were their agency, could put GTM on their site. And now all the partners just need access to GTM, because now that code is on the site, and any other codes for all the pixels go into Google Tag Manager. So now when the site loads, one thing fires, it calls to that and fires all the other things. So now you've got the benefit of streamlining who has access to your website, streamlining the code on your website, which should make your site speeds faster, which have a big impact on the performance of the site overall.
Absolutely.
Saying all that right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Perfect
Awesome.
summary. Yep.
Cool. I'm just want to make sure I'm on the right headspace as you, as the media guy here. So thinking about all of that, right? All those events firing that Alan alluded to, that stuff like Pixel. I want to track somebody that took an action on Facebook, right? And that fires. What do we mean by it fires? What's happening in the background? There's not actual like cannon blasts going off, right? So what's going on with the data within Google Tag Manager as people take actions?
Yeah, great question. No cannons yet. Maybe someday, but what's really happening is there's a little snippet of code, whether it's a pixel that's contained within the container, right? GTM is a code snippet as well. But if somebody clicks on a add to cart button, right, that's being recorded as a goal. If somebody makes a purchase on your e-commerce website, that's being recorded as a goal. So the different things that you want to work as a business to improve and grow, those are all being tracked digitally via GTM and these various pixels that are all housed within Google Tag Manager.
So all those things that are firing, I'm assuming, right? We are tracking it back to some sort of key business, like a KPI, right? Something that matters to the business. They want to know how many people hit that add to cart, or there's goals associated to it. It's tracking all of it. You can log into Google Tag Manager and then pull that data out for reporting.
Absolutely.
So then what Laura was saying, if you have to do that like 4 times, because there's 4 different tags that stuff's being loaded into, I'm sure that was very cumbersome and problematic, where you thought you pulled one, didn't pull another, and it just gets to be a mess when it doesn't need to be.
Absolutely.
So that's a benefit here, right? You got rid of that. But what are some other benefits to consolidating besides it's easier for reporting? What does the business enjoy now that this work took place?
Ease of management for sure. As with any multinational organization, right, they have multiple vendors, multiple partners, lots of hands in that cookie jar. And in this case, there were 3 cookie jars. So 3 Google Tag Manager containers. We worked with them to consolidate it into one, right? We put into place, a method of nomenclature, or naming the tags in a way that better represents, whose tag is whose, right? We're not messing with other partners' tags, and they're not messing with ours. So it's ease of management for not only ourselves, but the client, as well as other partners and vendors that they work with.
So I'm curious, it seems like a arduous undertaking, right? You describe it so beautifully, going from 3 cookie jars to 1 cookie jar. Like, oh, that sounds so nice. I'm sure in reality, though, that was a difficult task. How did the team map it out, and how did you begin to organize it so that you just had one single Google Tag Manager?
Yeah, so this is where we took a little page from our everyone's favorite organizer, Marie Kondo, right? We applied her 6 principles here. Everyone laughs when I start talking about Marie Kondo, but these principles really hold true even in the digital space, right? First you commit to tidying up, right? We made this a priority. We assigned a deadline, but as a whole, right, we should be doing this throughout our relationship, right? At a minimum quarterly, but whenever we launch a campaign, right, something like this needs to be done. Secondly, imagine your ideal lifestyle, right? What are those main goals and metrics for the business, right? What are those OKRs or those KPIs? What does success look like for the client, but also for Level as well? How do we want to measure that? What are the pieces and actions that we want to measure in order to say, hey, this was successful or this wasn't? So note those items, and noting those items, but also keeping those in a safe place. That way you can come back to them throughout this process. Thirdly, finish discarding first. Don't get ahead of yourself and start building your future house before you've moved out of your current one, right? We wanted to redline and document everything that needed thrown out or tossed, that are either non-essential or not in use anymore. In this instance, we used a color-coded system. Red equaled remove, yellow was questionable, or we need to work with the client to better understand why it was there, and green was a stay. But use what works for you, right? And so we set a date to have those tags removed, and also notated those changes in GA and data briefs and the like. 4, we tidied by category, right? We focused on the main actions, that we wanted to track, but start with your source of truth. So in this instance, it was Google Analytics was our source of truth, but for others, for other cases, it might be something else. It might be, your CRM. So focus on your source of truth first, then prioritize based off of your secondary and tertiary actions, based off of order of importance. 5, follow the right order, right? If Facebook is your main results-driven platform, those pixels should be on the top of the list here, right? You should be prioritizing those first. That way you have those all squared away, and everything is kosher with your main results drivers. And then lastly, does it spark joy, or does it really matter, right? Just because we can track every single click and interaction with a website does not mean we should. So make sure that you're working to better understand your client's goals in order to track what's most important when laddering performance results up to larger organizational goals.
So what I love most about Dylan's Marie Kondo metaphor here is how he used this reference constantly throughout this process. It took us like 2.5 weeks, I think, maybe 3 weeks to do it. So we did it on a really accelerated timeline. And I think this is the first instance of somebody that I know actually completing the Marie Kondo system. So I want to give him major credit for that, because I think I've tried it 3 times and haven't made it the whole way through.
I'm preaching Marie Kondo right now, and I'm sitting in a room that's covered with piles of laundry.
It's such a great comparison, though, right? Because when you think about clutter in our physical world, it impacts us mentally, right? Like you're thinking about that pile of laundry, Dylan, right? Even though you're doing this podcast, you have to go back to that later. And think about what it must have been like for the client, for their IT department, like you said, Laura, any of the stakeholders to log in, and they're just met with, I'm sure, what looked a little chaotic in Google Tag Manager and multiple instances of it. Whereas now they're not dreading an upcoming reporting task, or they're unsure about how to do this, that, or a third. So they're probably pushing it down the priority list. Now they're like, oh, I know how to do this. And they're moving faster, more efficiently, less time's being wasted. And we can spend more time not dealing with Google Tag Manager, but working with what it gives us and developing those insights that can really drive the business forward, which is huge. That's why we're here, right? And that's what the client wants. So really, it doesn't sound like marketing when you think about it at first, right? This whole project, but it has a huge impact on all the marketing efforts. And it's just really interesting to highlight.
Yeah. I mean, I think, Miles, everything you said there feels super germane to kind of how we approach the project, because we know what we're doing is one piece of the total puzzle for this client. The way that this came about is kind of the way that clutter just develops in your life in general. They've had multiple IT managers over the years. They've had so many different types of campaigns and so many different types of strategists working on their team over the years. And there are things that have migrated from other agencies into our ownership over the years. So as these things have happened, it's just organically kind of blossomed to the size and sort of understood chaos that we all just agreed was like fine for so long. And I remember when this particular new member of leadership joined the group and said, "This is wild. I want to take a crack at it. How do we do that?" And so for us, this is sort of the first step. This is our toe in the water of that total picture of data ecosystem health that we're able to impact right now. But they're undergoing a massive analytics review. Again, years of emerging types of schools of thought meant that they've had multiple GA instances. They've had multiple other types of analytics tools used, and getting to one clean and consolidated view of what measurement really looks like for their site is challenging today. It's still a little fuzzy. So we've gotten this piece, we've gotten that kind of baseline, but now we have to, partner with them and extend this through the rest of their analytics and reporting. And it's a massive undertaking, but it's really worth it in the end, because we'll be able to see with a lot more confidence what's happening every day when we turn things on, what's happening every day when their events team turns things on, when membership or scholarships or whatever other groups are running campaigns. They'll be able to really understand the impact of the work that they're doing, which is huge. It's a win for everybody in their partnership ecosystem.
One of the implications from what you said, Laura, is data equity, right? And so instead of needing to be the media genius that is Dylan, right, it makes it way more accessible so that someone like myself or Miles, right, who don't have a heavy media background can log in and really understand at a glance what's happening and why with data.
You should see the documentation from the beginning to the end of this. When Dylan kind of shared with me the first spreadsheet with some lines of things that were being tracked in different places to what we have now, just that consolidation alone, and then clarifying within that consolidation the actual intent behind each of these tags. It's so valuable because, again, we've been working with them for so long. The way that we did marketing in 2017 and 2018 is so different from what we do today. We can't call things the same names anymore. We have to be evolving the way we have conversations around performance as the industry evolves and as our tactics evolve. So this was, it was a step that we're really glad that they pushed for, because I think it's critical to how we even continue measuring this year and move into next year with them in an ecosystem that could include a whole new website with an e-commerce focus and some other big picture projects they have on the horizon.
So Laura alluded to it just there. But what's next on the horizon, Dylan? We know that there's a couple more Marie Kondo projects to clean up and spark joy. But how does this improvement and the ones in development, what's the impact for that future?
Great question. Yeah, this really sets us up and lays the foundation for success moving forward. We talked about the efficiency piece of it, right? This makes our team as well as theirs, a lot more agile and able to be adaptive and react to campaign initiatives quicker. But also, right, within the larger industry, there's a shift towards Google Analytics 4. And so this is going to help us go through that transition, which we're currently working on right now, a lot easier. It's going to be a lot smoother of a transition going from classic Google Analytics 3, as nobody calls it, or into the future with Google Analytics 4. So that's the next thing on the horizon here, as well as everything that Laura mentioned, a new site rebuild with e-commerce functionality. So, this is really an investment in the future.
So for all you listening out there, if you're listening to this and you know that the way you're tracking your data does not spark joy right now, as you heard from this podcast, we've got the team that can help you. We've got awesomely smart people like Dylan and Laura, and more where those came from, that can help tackle a project like this for you. So if it's something you're interested in, Scroll down to wherever you're listening to your podcast in the show notes where we describe this episode, and you'll find an email address there. It's podcast@level.agency. You can email us there, and we will put you in touch with one of our many awesome teams who can dig into this for you. And until next time, remember to test, learn, and grow.